Chapter 4. I have thus learned the second fact of great importance. This was that the planet the little prince came from was scarcely any larger than a house. But that did not really surprise me much. I knew very well that in addition to the great planets such as Earth, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, to which we have given names, there are also hundreds of others, some of which are so small that one has a hard time seeing them through the telescope. When an astronomer discovers one of these, he does not give it a name, but only a number. He might call it, for example, asteroid 325. I have serious reason to believe that the planet from which the little prince came is the asteroid known as B612. This asteroid has only once been seen through the telescope, and that was by a Turkish astronomer in 1909. On making his discovery, the astronomer had presented it to the International Astronomical Congress in a great demonstration. But it was in Turkish costume, and so nobody would believe what he said. Grown-ups are like that. Fortunately, however, for the reputation of asteroid B612, a Turkish dictator made a law that his subjects, under pain of death, should change the European costume. So in 1920, the astronomer gave his demonstration all over again, dressed with an impressive style and elegance, and this time everybody accepted his report. If I've told you these details about the asteroid and made a note of its numbers for you, it is on account of the grown-ups and their face. When you tell them that you have made a new friend, they never ask you any questions about essential matters. They never say to you, what does his voice sound like? What games does he love the best? Does he collect butterflies? Instead, they demand, how old is he? How many brothers has he? How much does he weigh? And how much money does his father make? Only from these figures do they think they have learned anything about him. If you were to say to the grown-ups, I saw a beautiful house made of rosy brick with geraniums in the windows and doves on the roof, they would not be able to get any idea of that house at all. You would have to express yourself or say to them, I saw a house that cost $20,000, and they would exclaim, oh, what a pretty house that is. Just so you might say to them, the proof that the little prince existed is that he was charming, that he laughed, and that he was looking for a sheep. If nobody wants a sheep, tell them that. They would shrug their shoulders and treat you like a child. But if you said to them the planet it came from is asteroid B612, then they would be convinced and leave you in peace from their questions. They are like that. One must not hold it against them. Children should always show great forbearance toward grown-up people. But certainly for us who understand life, figures are a matter of indifference. I should have liked to begin this story in the fashion of the fairy tales. I should have liked to say, once upon a time there was a little prince who lived on a planet that was scarcely any bigger than himself and who had need of a ship. To those who understand life, that would have given a much greater air of truth to my story. For I do not want anyone to read my book carelessly. I have suffered too much grief in setting down these memories. 6 years have already passed since my friend went away from me with his sheep. If I try to describe him here, it is to make sure that I shall not forget him. To forget a friend, that is sad. Not everyone has had a friend, and if I forget him, I may become like the grown-ups who are no longer interested in anything but figures. It is for that purpose again that I have bought a box of paints and some pencils. It is hard to take up drawing again at my age, when I have never made any pictures except those of the boa constrictors from the outside and the boa constrictors from the inside. I shall certainly try to make my portraits as true to life as possible, but I'm not at all sure of success. One drawing goes along all right and another has no resemblance to his subject. I make some errors too in the little prince's height. In one place he's too tall and in another too short, and I feel some doubts about the color of his costume. In certain more important details I shall make mistakes also, but that is something that will not be my fault. My friend never explained anything to me. He thought perhaps that I was like himself, but I, alas, do not know how to see sheep through the walls of boxes. Perhaps I'm a little like the grown-ups. I have had to grow. Chapter 5. As each day passed, I would learn in our talks something about the little prince's planet. His departure from it, his journey, the information would come very slowly as he might get a chance to fall from his thoughts. This time, once more, I had the sheep to thank for it. For the little prince asked me abruptly, as if seized by grave doubt, it is true, isn't it, that the sheep eat little bushes? Yes, that is true, little prince. Ah, I'm glad. I did not understand why it was so important that the sheep should eat like bushes. But the little prince added, then it follows that they also eat baobabs. I pointed out to the little prince that baobabs were not little bushes, but on the contrary, trees as big as castles. And that even if he took a whole herd of elephants away with him, the herd would not eat up one single baobab. The idea of the herd of elephants made the little prince laugh. We will have to put them one on top of another then, he said. But he made a wise comment. Before they grow so big, the baobabs start out by being little. That is strictly correct, I said. But why do you want the sheep to eat the little baobabs? He answered me at once. Oh, come, as if he were speaking of something that was self-evident, and I was obliged to make a great mental effort to solve this problem without any assistance. Indeed, as I learned, there were on the planet where the little prince lived, as on all planets, good plants and bad plants. In consequence, there were good seeds from good plants and bad seeds from bad plants, but seeds are invisible. They sleep deep in the heart of the earth's darkness until someone among them is seized with the desire to awaken. Then this little seed will stretch itself and begin timidly at first to push a charming little spring inoffensively upward toward the sun. Now there were some terrible seeds on the planet that was the home of the little prince, and these were the seeds of baobab. The soil of that planet was infested with them, and baobab is something you will never, ever be able to get rid of it if you attend it too late. It spreads over the entire planet, it bores clear through it with its roots, and if the planet is too small and the baobabs are too many, they split in pieces. It is a question of discipline, the little prince said to me later on. When you have finished your own toilet in the morning, then it's time to attend to the toilet of your planet. Just so, with the greatest care, you must see to it that you pull up regularly as the baobabs. At the very first moment when they can be distinguished from the rose bushes, which they resembled closely in their earliest youth, it is very tedious work. The little prince added, but very easy. And one day he said to me, you ought to make a beautiful drawing so that the children where you live can see exactly how all this is. That will be very useful to them if they were to travel someday. Sometimes. He added, there's no harm in putting off a piece of work until another day, but when it is a matter of baobabs, that always means a catastrophe. I knew a planet that was inhabited by a lazy man. He neglected 3 little bushes. So as the little prince described it to me, I have made a drawing of that planet. I do not much like to take the tone of a moralist, but the danger of the baobabs is so little understood and such considerable risks would be run by anyone who might get lost on an asteroid, that for once I'm breaking through my reserve. Children, I say plainly, watch out for the baobabs. My friends, like myself, have been skirting this danger for a long time without ever knowing it, and so it is for them that I have worked so hard over this drawing. The lesson which I pass on by this means is worth the double it has cost me. Perhaps you will ask me, why are there no other drawings in this book as magnificent and impressive as this drawing of the baobabs? The reply is simple. I have tried, but with the others I have not been successful. Chapter 6. Oh, little prince, bit by bit I came to understand the secrets of your sad little life. For a long time you had found your only entertainment in the quiet pleasure of looking at the sunset. I learned that new detail on the morning of the 4th day when you said to me, I'm very fond of sunsets. Come on, let us go look at a sunset now. But we must wait, I said. Wait for what? For the sunset, we must wait until it is the time. At first, you seemed to be very much surprised, and then you laughed to yourself. You said to me, I am always thinking that I'm at home. Just so everybody knows that when it is noon in the United States, the sun is setting over France. If you could fly to France in 1 minute, you could go straight into the sunset, right from the noon. Unfortunately, France is too far away for that, but on your tiny planet, my little prince, all you need is to do is move your chair a few steps and you can see the day end and the twilight falling whenever you like it. One day, you said to me, I saw the sunset 44 times. And a little later you added, you know one loves the sunset when one is so sad. Were you so sad then? I asked him. On the day 44 sunsets, wow. But the little prince made no reply. Chapter 7. On the 5th day again, as always, it was thanks to the sheep the secret of the little prince's life was revealed to me. Abruptly, without anything to lead up to it, and as if the question had been born of long and silent meditation as his problem, he demanded, a sheep, if it eats little bushes, does it eat flowers too? A sheep, I answered, eats anything it finds in its reach. Even flowers that have thorns? Yes, even flowers that have thorns. Then the thorns, what use are they? I didn't know. At that moment I was very busy trying to unscrew a bolt that had got stuck in my engine. I was very much worried for it. It was becoming clear to me that the breakdown of my plane was extremely serious and I had so little drinking water left that I had to fear for the worst. The thorns, what use are they? The little prince never let go of a question. Once he had asked it for me. As for me, I was upset over that boat, and I answered with the first thing that came into my head. The thorns are of no use at all. Flowers have thorns just for spite. Oh. There was a moment of complete silence. Then the little prince flashed back at me with a kind of resentfulness. I don't believe you. Flowers are weak creatures. They're naive. They reassure themselves as best they can. They believe that their thorns are terrible weapons. I did not answer again. At that instant, I was saying to myself, if this boat is still one turn, I'm going to knock it out with the hammer. Again, the little prince disturbed my thoughts. And you actually believe that the flowers... Oh no, I cried. No. I don't believe anything. I answered you with the first thing that came into my head. Don't you see, I am very busy with matters of the consequence? He stared at me thunderstruck. Matters of consequence? He said to me. He looked at me there with my hammer in my hand and my fingers black with engine grease, bending down over an object which seemed to him extremely ugly. You talk just like the grown-ups. That made me a little ashamed, but he went on relentlessly. You mix everything up together. You confuse everything. He was really angry. He tossed his golden curls in the breeze. I know a planet where there is a certain red-faced gentleman. He has never smelled a flower. He has never looked at a star. He has never loved anyone. He has never done anything in his life but add up figures. And all day he says over and over, just like you, I am busy with matters of consequence, and that makes him swell up with pride. But he's not a man. He's a mushroom. I said, a what? A mushroom. The little prince was now white with rage. The flowers have been growing thorns of millions of years. For millions of years, the sheep have been eating them just the same. And it is not a matter of consequence to try to understand why the flowers go to so much trouble to grow thorns which are never of any use to them. Is the warfare between the sheep and the flowers not important? Is this not of more consequence than a fat, red-faced gentleman's sums? And if I know, I, myself, one flower which is unique in the world, which grows nowhere but on my planet, but which one little sheep can destroy it in a single bite some morning without even noticing that he's... Oh, you think that is not important? His face turned from white to red as he continued. If someone loves a flower, of which just one single blossom grows in all the millions and millions of stars, it is enough to make him happy just to look at the stars. He can say to himself, somewhere my flower is there. But if the sheep eats the flower, in one moment all his stars will be darkened. And you think that is not important? He could not say anything more. His words were choked by sobbing. The night had fallen. I had let my tools drop from my hands. Of what moment now was my hammer, my boat, or thirst or death? On one star, one planet, my planet the Earth, there was a little prince to be comforted. I took him to my arms and rocked him. I said to him, the flower that you love is not in danger. I will draw you a muzzle for your ship. I will draw you a railing to put around your flower. I did not know what to say to him. I felt awkward and blundering. I did not know how I could reach him, where I could overtake him and go on hand in hand with him once more. It is such a secret place, the land of tears. Had come up, and the little prince had watched very closely over this small sprout, which was like any other small sprouts on this planet. It might, you see, have been a new kind of baobab. The shrub soon stopped growing and began to get ready to produce a flower. The little prince, who was present at the first appearance of a huge bud, he felt at once that some sort of miraculous apparition must emerge from it. But the flower was not satisfied to complete the preparations for her beauty in the shelter of her green chamber. She closed her colors with the greatest care. She dressed herself slowly. She adjusted her petals one by one. She did not wish to go out into the world all rumpled, like the field poppies. It was only in the full radiance of her beauty that she wished to appear. Oh yes, she was a coquettish creature, and her mysterious adornment lasted for days and days. Then one morning, exactly at sunrise, she suddenly showed herself. And after working with all this painstaking precision, she yawned and said, I'm scarcely awake. I beg that you will excuse me, my petals are disarranged. But the little prince could not restrain his admiration. Oh, how beautiful you are. Am I not? The flower responded sweetly. and I was born at the same moment as the sun. The little prince could guess easily enough that she was not any too modest, but how moving and exciting she was. I think it's time for breakfast, she added. An instant later, if you would have the kindness to think of my needs. The little prince, completely abashed, went to look for a sprinkling can of fresh water, so he tended the flower. So too, she began very quickly to torment him with her vanity, which was, if the truth to be known, a little difficult to deal with. One day, for instance, when she was speaking of her 4 thorns, she said to the little prince, "Let the tigers come with their claws." "There are no tigers on my planet," the little prince objected. "And anyways, tigers do not eat weeds." "I'm not a weed," the flower replied sweetly. "Please excuse me? I'm not at all afraid of tigers," she went on. "But I have a horror of drafts. I suppose you wouldn't have a screen for me." "A horror of drafts? That is bad luck for a plant. This flower is a very complex creature. Tonight I want you to put me under a glass globe. It is very cold where you live, in the place I come from." But she interrupted herself at that point. She had come in the form of a seed. She could not have known anything of any other words. Embarrassed over having her let herself be caught on the verge of such a naive untruth, she coughed 2 or 3 times in order to put the little prince in the wrong. "The screen? I was just going to look for it when you spoke to me." Then she forced her cough a little more so that he should suffer from remorse just the same. So the little prince, in spite of all the good with what was inseparable from his love, had soon come to doubt her. He had taken seriously words which were without importance, and it made him very unhappy. "I ought not to have listened to her," he confided to me one day. "One never ought to listen to the flowers. One should simply look at them and breathe their fragrance. Mine perfumed all my planet, but I did not know how to take pleasure in all her grace. This tale of claws, which disturbed me so much, should only have filled my heart with tenderness and pity." And he continued his confidences. "The fact is that I did not know how to understand anything. I ought to have judged by deeds and not by my words. She cast her fragrance and her radiance over me. I ought never to have run away from her. I ought to have guessed all affection that lay behind her poor little stratagems. Flowers are so inconsistent, but I was too young to know how to love her." Chapter 9. I believe that for his escape, he took advantage of the migration of a flock of wild birds. On the morning of his departure, he put his planet in perfect order. He carefully cleaned out his active volcanoes. He possessed 2 active volcanoes, and they were very convenient for heating his breakfast in the morning. He also had 1 volcano that was extinct, but as I said, one never knows. So he cleaned out the extinct volcano too. If they're still well cleaned out, volcanoes burn slowly and steadily. Without any eruptions, volcanic eruptions are like fires in a chimney. On our Earth, we are obviously much too small to clean out our volcanoes. That is why they bring no end of trouble upon us. The little prince also pulled up with a certain sense of dejection. The last little shoots of the baobabs, he believed that he would never want to return. But on this last morning, all these familiar tasks seemed very precious to him. And when he watered the flower for the last time and prepared to place her under the shelter of a glass globe, he realized that he was very close to tears. "Goodbye," he said to the flower, but she made no answer. "Goodbye?" The flower coughed, but it was not because she had a cold. "I've been silly," she said to him. "I ask your forgiveness. Try to be happy." He was surprised by this absence of reproaches. He stood there all bewildered. The glass globe held arrested in mid-air. He did not understand this quiet sweetness. "Of course I love you," the flower said to him. "It is my fault that you have not known it all the while. That is of no importance, but you have been just as foolish as I. Try to be happy. Let the glass globe be. I don't want it anymore." But the wind. My cold is not so bad as all that. The cool night air will do me good. I'm a flower." "But the animals? Well, I must endure the presence of 2 or 3 caterpillars if I wish to become acquainted with the butterflies. It seems that they are very beautiful. And if not the butterflies and the caterpillars, well, who will call upon me? You will be far away. As for the large animals, I'm not at all afraid any of them. I have my claws." Naively, she showed her 4 thorns. She added, "Don't linger like this. You've decided to go away. Now go." For she did not want him to see her crying. She was such a proud flower.